This video is on multiplying in algebra. So it's really important that when you do these kinds of questions that it all comes from a place of understanding, and this all starts in year 7 or much earlier really, where we learned about some number properties or index laws. So in primary school and in year 7 you would have revised things like 5 times 5 times 5. We don't need to calculate what that is as a number. We can actually write it in index form as 5 cubed. Okay, this is called your base, and this is your power. Okay, and the little power tells you how many times your base has been multiplied by itself. B in there. So in this case, we know that the 5, because that's my base, has been multiplied by itself 3 times. 1, 2, 3. So when we get to algebra and we see things like p times p times p, we apply exactly the same thinking, which is p has been multiplied by itself 3 times, so I can write that as p cubed. Often we might see something like 3p, and that to me shows a lack of understanding about what's happening, and we want to go back to the numbers to remember what did we do with the numbers and do the same exact thing with the letters, because in algebra we can replace the letters with numbers, and all the same properties should still apply. If we have something like a times b, well, we're not collecting like terms, we are multiplying, so we're going to be multiplying first a by a, and we know from looking at the example above that a times a would be a squared, because the a is being multiplied by itself 2 times. I will not put the b with the a when it comes to squaring, because if you look at this example, the b is only multiplied by itself once. It doesn't get squared, so I wouldn't write ab squared, and I also wouldn't write ab all squared, or I wouldn't write ab squared, because in this answer here, the b is being squared, and we can see that the b has not been squared. So all I need to do is just write down a b, because the b is not being multiplied by any other b's. We would not put that little time sign in here. We know it exists, but I would not write it. So I don't want to see an answer of a squared times b, because I would consider that to be unsimplified. So I'm just going to remove that little time sign there. And finally, if we use the same thinking that we used up here, when I take something like c cubed times c squared, well, the c cubed means we've times the c by itself 3 times, and the c squared means we've times the c by itself twice, and altogether I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 c's. So I'm multiplying 5 by itself. Sorry, I'm multiplying c by itself 5 times, so that would be c to the power of 5. Sometimes in a question like this we would see students multiplying these powers, and they would say, oh, it's c to the power of 6, and that tells me they're not thinking about this, that we are actually multiplying a string of 3 c's and a string of 2 c's, and that gives me a string of 5 c's. So in short, the rule is when you're multiplying we can add the powers, but I think if you understand what's happening, then it's almost like you don't need to memorize a rule. So try and think a lot about what is actually happening with these letters. Alright, let's have a look at a few examples. So I will make it harder in year 8. You're not in year 7 anymore. We'll make it harder by adding things like some negatives. But hopefully you know that when we multiply a negative by a negative, we get a positive. And you can write the plus sign down, but really you're not required to. If a term is positive, we don't really need a sign at the front. So when I do these kinds of questions, it's always, for me, signs first. So we'll deal with the signs at the front of the terms, and then I look at the letters. Actually, I don't even do that. We'll take it one more step back. Signs first, then the numbers, then the letters. I love these highlighters. Alright, so a negative and a negative we just talked about makes a positive. I'll write it down for now. 5, well, there's an imaginary 1 here. If you forget about it, write it in. 5 ones are 5. And then we can do the letters. A, multiplied by BC is just A, B, C. So 3 steps. Signs first, numbers next, then variables. I would only make a slight change, which is I don't need that positive sign. You can have it there if you want, but you don't need to. Let's try the next example. Same deal as before, so I want to break it into signs first. If I can't see anything, it's a plus, and then I'm going to do numbers, and I'm going to do variables. Let's give it a go. So I've got a negative here, and I have a plus here. Nothing's written, we know it's positive. Negative and a positive makes a minus. Then I've got 3 times 5. 3 5s, 15. So I like separating the signs and the integers, or the coefficients as they're called, the numbers at the front, because it just breaks the question down for me. And then n cubed, a string of 3 n's, times n to the 5, another string of 5 n's, all being multiplied, makes n to the power of 8. 1, 2, 3 here, 1, 2, 3 here, and another 5 would make me a string of 8. So do not be tempted to multiply the 3 and the 5. All right, your turn. Your turn to give it a go. So this is where you can pause the video and attempt the question. And then you can unpause it to compare your answer with my answer. So let's have a look at the signs. Then we've got numbers, and then we've got letters. All right, so a negative and a negative, 2, they make a positive. I'm going to put in one more negative there. So this positive, and this negative would then become negative. 9 times 4, well, that's 36. And p to the 5, a string of 5. P to the 4, another 4. And we've got q cubed. That's not a string of p's, that's a string of q's. So I'm only going to deal with the string of p's first. So a string of 5 and a string of 4 would make a string of 9 p's, so p to the power of 9, and then I would write down the q cubed. 2 more examples for us to look at. If you feel confident, you can give these a go on your own. I'm going to do all my color coding. Signs. No numbers there. Well, we've got imaginary ones in the first example. Letters. Variables. Okay. So, we've got a negative and a negative makes a positive. One more negative will make that negative. I've got G here. If I don't see a power, there's an imaginary 1. So I've got G to the power of 1 times G to the power of 4. That's a string of 5. So it'd be G to the power of 5 R squared. Over here, I've got a negative and a negative. It makes a positive. I won't write it down. 11 times 8 is 88. F to the 7 times F cubed. That's a string of 7 multiplied by themselves. F times 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 another string of 2. That makes a string of 9. F to the power of 9. Hopefully through those examples you feel confident with multiplying. If not, now's the time to ask me for a bit more help in class, because that just about covers it. So if you're stuck, you can rewatch the video, or you can just raise your hand and ask for some help.